The sound that changed my life forever wasn't a thunderclap or a gunshot. It was my daughter's scream, raw and terrified, cutting through a quiet suburban afternoon like glass shattering in a cathedral. In that moment, everything I had tolerated, every insult, every petty fine, every glare from the woman who had taken over our neighborhood HOA, suddenly boiled into one undeniable truth. This wasn't just harassment anymore. It was war. Months earlier, it had all seemed like just another boring neighborhood election. People brought cupcakes to the clubhouse, smiles plastered across their faces, talking about how refreshing it would be to have new leadership. I wasn't fooled. I told anyone who would listen that Karen, the loudest candidate on the ballot, was trouble. She wasn't the savior people thought she was. She was power-hungry, petty, and mean-spirited. I said it in the meetings on the sidewalk, even when I was just out walking the dog. I warned them she would turn this place into a prison yard. But people laughed me off, rolled their eyes, and waved me away. They wanted to believe in cookies and cheerful slogans more than in common sense, and so Karen was voted in. On the day she was sworn in, while neighbors sipped soda and congratulated themselves on their choice, Karen strutted across the clubhouse floor like a queen accepting her crown. When she passed me, she leaned close enough that I could smell her stale coffee breath, and whispered into my ear, "I'm going to make this neighborhood hell for you." She didn't smile when she said it. Her eyes were cold, sharp, and absolutely serious. I laughed it off at first, assuming she was being dramatic. I thought maybe she just wanted to scare me, but it didn't take long to realize she meant every word. Within days of taking office, Karen's vendetta became my daily reality. Suddenly, my trash bins had to be exactly on the curb at 7 a.m. sharp, and if I was a minute late, a fine appeared in my mailbox. If my grass was half an inch taller than regulation height, another fine. If I parked my car at the slightest angle on my own driveway, yet another fine. At first, I thought she was just overzealous, eager to prove herself as the new HOA president. But as the weeks went by, it became obvious. She wasn't targeting the whole neighborhood. She was targeting me. My neighbors left bins out for days, grass sprouting like a jungle and their driveways cluttered with cars. But Karen ignored them. For me, the smallest detail became a punishable crime. It was exhausting, infuriating, and absurd, but it didn't stop there. One afternoon, I opened my mailbox expecting another petty violation notice. Instead, I found a letter that nearly made me tear it to pieces with my bare hands. Stamped with the HOA seal, the letter accused my daughter Emily, 7 years old, sweet, bubbly, always singing Disney songs, of being a notorious disturbance to the community. It claimed she was loud, disrespectful, even destructive. It accused her of vandalism and warned that, if her behavior is not curbed, more extreme measures will be taken. I read it 3 times, unable to believe it. My little girl, who spent her afternoons drawing chalk rainbows on the sidewalk and giggling with her best friend on the porch, was being painted as some kind of juvenile delinquent. That's when I realized Karen wasn't just after me anymore. She was coming after my child. I could take the harassment, the fines, the whispered threats, but dragging my daughter into her twisted game was crossing a line I could never forgive. For 4 days, I couldn't sleep properly. I stayed awake, pacing the kitchen, replaying those words in my mind. Extreme measures will be taken. What did that mean? Was she threatening to call authorities? Expel us from the neighborhood? I tried to calm myself, but a voice inside me kept repeating, "She's not finished yet." And I was right. It was a sunny afternoon, deceptively peaceful. Emily was sitting on the porch with our neighbor's boy, coloring on the concrete with bright chalk. I was sipping iced tea nearby when my phone buzzed from inside. I went to grab it. Just seconds, that's all I was gone. Then I heard it. The scream. My blood froze as I sprinted outside. And there she was, Karen, standing over my daughter with a black taser pressed against Emily's tiny arm, electricity crackling, my child convulsing in pain. For one split second, my brain couldn't process it. Then rage consumed me. I don't remember making a decision. I just moved. My body reacted like an animal protecting its young. I lunged forward and with every ounce of strength I had, swung my hand across her face. The sound was sharp and final, echoing across the cul-de-sac. Karen stumbled, gasping, before falling back onto the grass. The taser slipped from her hand, still sparking against the dirt. Emily was crying, her little body trembling. I scooped her up, held her close, checked her frantically, whispering that she was safe now. Neighbors poured out of their houses, eyes wide, some recording with their phones, others shouting in shock. Karen, still on the ground, clutched her cheek with one hand and screeched at me, accusing me of assault, pointing wildly with her free hand. I put Emily behind me, my chest heaving, my eyes locked on Karen like a lion daring anyone to come closer. When she tried to crawl toward the taser, I stepped on it, grinding it into the dirt with my shoe until it was nothing but useless plastic and sparks. The murmurs around us grew louder. "She tased a kid. She's insane. Call the cops!" People weren't siding with her anymore. They had seen enough. For the first time since she had grabbed power, Karen wasn't the queen of the neighborhood. She was the criminal, exposed in the spotlight she thought she controlled, and the sound of sirens was already in the distance, growing louder by the second. The flashing lights of the police cruisers painted the street red and blue as neighbors gathered in clusters, whispering like they had just witnessed the season finale of a crime drama. 2 officers rushed in, separating me from Karen, who was still shrieking with one hand on her cheek and the other pointing wildly at me. "He attacked me! He assaulted me for no reason!" she screamed, her voice cracking. But one officer calmly raised the evidence bag where the taser now sat, still warm from the sparks. Another officer had already spoken to the neighbors, several of whom shoved their phones forward to show the videos they had captured. The truth was undeniable. Karen had crossed a line no one could excuse. I was placed in handcuffs as a matter of procedure, though one of the officers whispered, "Don't worry, sir, we've seen the footage." Emily was checked by paramedics. Thankfully, aside from some bruising and trauma, she was physically okay. I sat in the holding cell that night, replaying it all in my head, anger and fear mixing until I could hardly breathe. But deep down, I knew the tide had turned. Karen's story was collapsing faster than she could spin it. Court came quickly. The room was packed. Neighbors, reporters, curious onlookers. Karen strutted in like she was the victim of some grand conspiracy, a bandage across her face for extra drama. She tried to paint me as a violent man who had snapped out of nowhere. But then the prosecutor played the videos, the sound of the taser crackling, Emily's scream, my desperate lunge, Karen's smug face caught in the act. The courtroom gasped. Karen's attorney fumbled, but there was no defense. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing, and spoke words I will never forget. This man did what any parent would do. He protected his child from imminent harm. That is not assault. That is instinct. That is the law. My charges were dismissed immediately. Relief flooded through me, but the real moment of justice came when Karen's verdict was read. She was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment, and reckless conduct. The judge sentenced her to 7 years in state prison and barred her from ever possessing a weapon again. On top of that, she was ordered to pay me $300,000 in damages. Gasps echoed through the courtroom as Karen's face twisted from arrogance to horror. She had walked in believing she was untouchable, but she walked out in handcuffs, her empire of fines and petty power crumbling into dust. The neighborhood finally saw her for what she truly was, a bully in a cheap crown. From that day forward, people stopped whispering behind closed doors. They spoke openly, thankful the nightmare was over. And as for me, I held Emily close, knowing that no matter what came next, I had stood my ground when it mattered most. Justice had been served, and the tyrant of our street was nothing more than a cautionary tale.